All right, I got another one for you guys. Going to be going through kind of a retrospective here of the AAA industry, specifically with one studio, Ubisoft. I got a theory that I wanted to test, and that theory was that as time progressed, these AAA studios started to get worse and worse with making games. Like their quality started to suffer. They got more preachy. The challenge was getting less and less. It was getting to be more dumbed down. Gameplay wasn't as interesting, and you started to get a lot more cutscenes and QuickTime events and all this, all these kind of things that just kind of accumulated into a less interesting game or a less engaging game that they were putting out over the years, at least. And like I said, Ubisoft, I think, is a prime example of that because back in the day, they could do no wrong. I mean, the Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, everything was like coming off Ubisoft, and then all of a sudden they they introduced all these new elements over time and got more preachy, and everything got a little more dumbed down, a little more simplistic, and more buggy, and now you've got games that are not as fun, not as playable, and not as interesting. So I wanted to see if that was actually reflected in the numbers. So I jumped on SteamDB, which is not ideal, but until I can actually get some things together to kind of dig into this data myself directly from Steam, this is kind of going to have to do. So what I did here, and let's go to a more appropriate view here, was on the left here. I changed some filters. So I went from January 1st, 2017 until today. And I also included a filter for at least one review. And so what that basically did was it cut out all the entries in Steam that are like, DLC or demos or trailers or what have you, all the things that are extraneous to the game release page that actually show up in Steam as game releases, but they don't have any reviews. They're not actually the game. They're just attached to the game. So it kind of got rid of all those entries and focused it down to just the core here of basically the actual game that was released. So this is basically that. This is basically all the games that they've released since 2017 in a list. And what I did was I just copied all this out, put it into a spreadsheet, and started digging through that data and putting some things together. And so let's just go to that spreadsheet now so I can show you kind of my homework. So you can see here, this is basically a reflection of what we saw in SteamDB. It's every title listed out. Any data point that they didn't have anything for, it just has dashes through it so that it wouldn't get counted in the totals. And that actually makes a big difference down the line. We'll see in the charts. But you have it, it's ordered and color coded by year, just to kind of get a better idea of where things start and end. And so that's all the data. And we'll actually come back to this in a little while, just for a particular data point that is sketchy at best. But we'll get into that in a moment. So let's take a look at those charts, and we'll see what we got here. So my theory was, in reality, interest in these games would go down over time because the games are getting worse. And it's a little more complicated than the charts actually show. However, let's just start with releases and ratings, this top chart here. So you can see in blue is the number of releases for that year. And then at the top, you have the average reviews of all those releases per year. And you can see in 2017, it started a little above 60%, went up to almost 80 in 2018. And then it started to drop back down just over 60, just over 60, just over 60, below 60, barely over 60. And now we're at, just over 50 in 2024. Although, we're not through the year yet, so this could change over time. So I guess take this entry with a grain of salt. However, down below, you can take this one with a huge grain of salt because that's not accurate at all, and we'll get into that in a minute. So Ubisoft releases and peak players. So this is the number of players, the peak number of players for that game that was released in that year. So it's not the number of players for that year because I can't drill down to that level of detail, but it does give you an idea of how popular those games were over time. So you can see in 2017, the peak players were just under the average peak online players was just under 20,000. Then it jumped up to just under 35,000. Then it dropped down to like around 2,500 and close to zero in 2020. 2021 doesn't have any data points at all, so we couldn't put that one in. So that's kind of why that's left blank. So that's the reason why the dashes are there, so that we don't get an extraneous reading here. But then you can see in 2022, it did go back up to just over 5,000, just under 10,000 in 2023, and then it jumped way up to just above 45,000 average in 2024, which is not accurate, and I'll tell you why. So if we go over to the CSV, or the spreadsheet again, we can see that For Honor is listed as a 2024 game, with a peak player count of 225,000. So that brought that average up tremendously compared to what it would actually be. So if we take a look at that in SteamDB, we can see why. So let's just take a look here, and yeah, I'm just not on the right window. Hold on one second. All right, so let's take a look at it in SteamDB. You can see that this is where the 225,000 player count comes from, and it's in 2018. So they made it look like this was released this past year, even though it's, it was released presumably in 2017, I believe, unless, I think that's got to be 2016 maybe. So you got this For Honor Year 8 Standard Edition entry here. So basically the way Ubisoft did this, because they're doing this by year, they made it look like it was released this year because it's the Year 8 Standard Edition. However, I can't do this in Steam, so I don't know how they pulled this off. I mean, obviously, they have special access in Steam. They got special abilities that most people probably don't have. But I can't even take a game and change it from being a charged game to being a free game without redoing the game. And Ubisoft can pull this stuff. So very suspicious, but I guess that's the way it is. If you're a big studio, you get special treatment, and you get special treatment basically everywhere. So I can't really fault Steam for that, I guess. But I do wish that I had a little more ability to change my own stuff in Steam than I do. And meanwhile, Ubisoft can do stuff like this. So what are you going to do, though? So that is the reason for that huge jump in the charts. And so you can actually kind of discount this. This is basically going to, this 45,000 plus would actually be over near 2018's numbers, not 2024's. So basically 2017 and 18 are effectively higher than every other year going. So round about 2018, 2019, that's when interest in Ubisoft kind of dropped off. And you can actually see that with the reviews. The reviews in 2018 were very high. 2019, they dropped back down, and they started to slowly decline after that. Same thing with player counts. Player counts are fairly low after 2018. You'd expect this to kind of gradually be going up, but it's dropping off and staying below what those 2017 numbers are. I'd actually like to do a further dive back, like get back to like AC1, AC2, AC3, and 4, back when Ubisoft games were fun, and see what those numbers are. But that's a lot more digging back, and it was a little more tedious to pull that off right now. But I might do that in the future once I get that project under wraps that I've been working on to dig into Steam a little further. But yeah, it's interesting to see these trends. It's definitely there. It kind of confirms my hypothesis where ratings and player counts are both kind of suffering because of the way that they're making games now, as opposed to the way they made them back in the day. Because even in 2018, 2017, they weren't the best games. They weren't Ubisoft's best work by any stretch of the imagination. They were certainly better than today. But yeah, they were already starting to fall off at this point, in my mind at least. So yeah, that's what I got. Hopefully this kind of sheds some light on some things. And, if you like these kind of videos, definitely let me know, because I can certainly do this for other studios. I can certainly dig further back. But this was kind of a trial run. So maybe maybe if you guys really like these videos, I'll dig further back on Ubisoft and see what 2010 Ubisoft looked like. Because I think they do have numbers for back that far, at least certainly with reviews, and maybe even player counts on SteamDB. I can't remember for sure, but Yeah, that's what I got for you guys. Hope you enjoy the vid. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you guys later.